A desperate woman hires a wedding planner for a fiancé who doesn't exist. A mafia boss who witnesses her lie. One fake engagement that becomes a deadly game of power, deception, and forbidden desire. When Lena Hayes' carefully constructed world of lies collides with Adrian Voss's empire of violence, survival means becoming his wife. For real. In a city where weakness is fatal and trust is a luxury no one can afford, she'll discover that the most dangerous man alive might be the only one who can save her, or destroy her completely. If you want to see how far this story travels, hit like and comment with your city below. Now, let me take you into Lena's world. The champagne flute felt like a prop in Lena Hayes' hand, expensive, delicate, completely out of place, just like her. She stood in the marble-floored lobby of Elysee Events, one of the city's most exclusive wedding planning firms, wearing a dress she'd bought on credit and heels that were already murdering her feet. The receptionist had looked at her twice when she walked in. That particular kind of look that said, "You don't belong here." And Lena had smiled through it because that was what she did. She smiled through everything. "Miss Hayes?" A woman in a pristine cream suit appeared, clipboard in hand, expression professionally warm. "I'm Caroline. Thank you so much for coming in today." Lena stood, smoothing down her dress, trying to look like someone who regularly dropped thousands of dollars on wedding consultations. "Of course. Thank you for seeing me." Caroline's office was all soft grays and gold accents, with a view of the city that probably cost more than Lena's annual rent. Photos of elaborate weddings covered one wall. Crystal chandeliers, flower arrangements the size of compact cars, couples who looked like they'd stepped out of magazines. "So," Caroline said, settling behind her desk with a smile that was probably genuine but felt rehearsed. "Tell me about your fiancé." Lena's throat tightened. This was it. Lena's tits. The moment where her carefully constructed lie either held together or fell apart spectacularly. "His name is Michael," she said, the name sliding out smooth as silk because she'd practiced this. "Michael Carson. He's in finance, very busy, which is why he couldn't be here today." "Of course," Caroline made a note. "And when are we thinking for the big day?" 6 months. Lena took a sip of champagne she didn't want. "My grandmother's turning 85 in 3 weeks, and I want to at least have the engagement party planned before then. She's been asking about my love life for years, and I want to give her this. Something beautiful to look forward to." That part, at least, was true. Everything else was smoke and mirrors. Caroline's expression softened. "That's lovely. Family is so important." She pulled out a thick binder. "Now, for an engagement party in 3 weeks, we're looking at a tight timeline, but absolutely doable. What kind of budget are we working with?" Lena had researched this, knew the right numbers to throw out to sound credible without being absurd. Around $15,000 for the engagement party. The wedding itself, we're thinking closer to $75,000. She watched Caroline's face, looking for any sign of skepticism, but the wedding planner just nodded, already flipping through vendor lists. "Wonderful. That gives us some excellent options. Tell me, what's your vision? Classic? Modern? Romantic?" For the next hour, Lena spun a fantasy. She described a fiancé who didn't exist, a love story that had never happened, a future that was nothing but carefully constructed fiction. Michael loved her in blue. Michael wanted a small ceremony, intimate, just close friends and family. Michael was traditional, wanted everything perfect, wanted to make her grandmother happy. Michael was a ghost, and Lena was exhausted from keeping him alive. "This all sounds perfect," Caroline said finally, sliding a contract across the desk. "I just need a signature and the deposit, $5,000 to get started, and we can begin making your dream engagement party a reality." Lena stared at the contract. $5,000 she didn't have. For a party celebrating a man who didn't exist. For a grandmother who deserved better than lies but was getting them anyway because Lena was too proud, too ashamed, too tired of being the family disappointment. Her hand moved before her brain could stop it, signing her name in neat, practiced loops. "I'll have the deposit wired tomorrow," she said, standing before Caroline could ask questions. "Thank you so much for your time." Outside, the city hit her like a wall. Noise, exhaust, the particular kind of chaos that made you feel both invisible and exposed. Lena walked 3 blocks before she let herself stop, leaning against a building, closing her eyes. What the hell was she doing? Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. Can't wait to meet Michael at Grandma's party. She's so excited. You've made her so happy, sweetheart. Lena wanted to scream. Instead, she typed back, Me too. See you soon. The lie was getting bigger. Soon it would be too big to control, too big to walk back from. But what was the alternative? Show up alone to her grandmother's 85th birthday and admit that at 32, she was still single, still struggling, still the granddaughter who couldn't get her life together while her siblings thrived? No, she'd come too far to back out now. The sun was setting, painting the city in shades of amber and shadow. Lena needed to get home, needed to figure out where she was going to get $5,000 by tomorrow, needed to... A sound stopped her. A crash, followed by voices. Angry, sharp, male. She was on 5th Street, the part of downtown that transitioned from boutique shops to something grittier after dark. There was an alley to her left, narrow and dark, and the sounds were coming from there. Lena knew better. Every woman who'd ever lived in a city knew better. You didn't investigate strange noises in dark alleys. You walked away. You minded your business. You survived. But there was something about the voice, a desperation in it that felt familiar, like looking in a mirror. She moved closer, just to the edge of the alley, just enough to see. 3 men. 2 were large, dressed in dark clothes, faces hard. The third was on the ground, hands up, bleeding from somewhere near his temple. I told you, the man on the ground was saying, voice cracking. I told you I'd have it by Friday. I just need 2 more days. You've had 2 weeks. One of the standing men crouched down, and Lena saw something flash in his hand. A gun. Mr. Voss doesn't like waiting. The name meant nothing to Lena, but the gun did. She should leave. Should turn around, walk away, pretend she'd never seen this. But her feet wouldn't move. Please, the bleeding man begged. I have kids. I have. The gunshot was so loud, Lena felt it in her chest. She clapped a hand over her mouth to keep from screaming, stumbling backward, and that was her mistake. Her heel caught on uneven pavement, and she fell hard, her purse spilling across the ground. The 2 men turned. Shit, one of them said. Lena scrambled to her feet, but they were already moving toward her. Fast. Too fast. Hey! The one with the gun grabbed her arm. How long you been standing there? I just... Her voice wouldn't work properly. I didn't see anything. That right? He looked back at his partner. She didn't see anything. Please. Lena hated how small her voice sounded. I'm just trying to get home. I won't say anything. I swear. They exchanged a look, and Lena knew that they weren't going to let her walk away. You didn't witness a murder and just leave. That wasn't how this worked. Can't let you do that, sweetheart. The gun came up. Nothing personal. Everything slowed down. Lena thought about her grandmother, about the lies she'd told, about dying for a man who wasn't even real. She thought about how stupid it was, how pointless, how her last thought was going to be about a fake fiancé. That won't be necessary. The new voice came from deeper in the alley, smooth and cold and carrying the kind of authority that made both men freeze. A figure emerged from the shadows. Tall, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Lena's car, moving with the kind of controlled grace that suggested violence was always an option but rarely necessary. Mr. Voss, the man with the gun said, lowering it immediately. We were just... I can see what you were doing. The man, Voss, came closer, and Lena got her first real look at him. He was younger than she expected, maybe late 30s, with dark hair and features that would have been handsome if not for the absolute lack of warmth in his eyes. Everything about him screamed danger, from the expensive suit to the way he moved, like a predator comfortable in his territory. Let her go, Voss said. The grip on Lena's arm released immediately. She should run. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but those cold eyes were on her now, assessing, and Lena had the distinct feeling that running would trigger something she didn't want triggered. You saw what happened here? Voss asked her directly. Lena's mouth was dry. No. No? His head tilted slightly. You're standing in an alley where a man was just killed and you saw nothing. I heard a noise. I came to check. I was leaving. The lies came easier now, survival instinct kicking in. I don't know what happened. I don't know you. I was never here. Something flickered in his expression. Amusement, maybe, or interest. Most people would be crying by now. I don't cry easily. It was true and also a lie. She cried constantly, but never in front of people who could use it against her. Voss studied her for a long moment. Behind him, Lena could see the body of the man on the ground, could see the blood, could see her entire life pivoting on whatever happened in the next 30 seconds. What's your name? Voss asked. Every fiber of her being screamed not to answer, but saying nothing felt more dangerous. Lana? Just Lena? Hayes. Lena Hayes. Well, Lena Hayes. He stepped closer, and she forced herself not to back away. You've put me in an interesting position. My associates here think you're a liability. What do you think? I think I'm nobody. Her voice was steadier than she felt. I think I was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and I think if you let me walk away, you'll never hear from me again. I have no reason to talk to anyone about anything because I don't know anything. Smart answer. His gaze dropped to her left hand to the empty ring finger. You married Lena Hayes? The question threw her. What? Simple question. And here was where the lie that had seemed so manageable this afternoon became something else entirely. Here was where Lena Hayes, professional liar, desperate woman, made a choice that would change everything. Yes, she said, engaged. Engaged. Voss smiled, and it didn't reach his eyes. To? Michael Carson. The fake name rolled out automatically. He's in finance. We're getting married in 6 months. Is that right? Voss glanced at his men, then back to her. And does Michael know you're in alleys after dark, witnessing things you shouldn't? He'll be furious with me for being careless, Lena said, leaning into the lie because it was all she had. But he'll also be relieved I'm safe, that I gotta go home. Voss studied her, and Lena had the unsettling feeling he could see right through her, could see every lie, every crack, every desperate corner she'd painted herself into. You're either very brave or very stupid, he said finally. Probably both. That almost smile flickered again. Go home, Lena Hayes. Forget you were here. Forget what you saw. And next time you're curious about strange noises, maybe don't investigate. He nodded to his men, who stepped aside, creating a clear path out of the alley. Lena didn't wait for him to change his mind. She grabbed her purse, gathered what was left of her dignity, and walked, didn't run, walking showed control, out of the alley and into the street beyond. She made it 2 blocks before her legs gave out, and she had to sit on a bench, shaking so hard her teeth chattered. She'd just witnessed a murder. She'd just lied to a man who was clearly dangerous, clearly powerful, clearly not someone you lied to. She'd used her fake fiancé as a shield, as protection, and somehow it had worked. For now. Her phone buzzed again. Another text from her mother. Should I make reservations for 4 at Grandma's party? You, me, your father, and Michael? Lena looked at the message for a long time. Then she typed, Make it 4. Michael wouldn't miss it. The lie was suffocating her, but the alternative, admitting the truth, facing the disappointment, becoming the failure she'd spent years trying not to be, felt worse. She'd figure it out. She always did. She had 3 weeks. Chet. The next 2 days passed in a blur of anxiety and logistics. Lena worked her waitressing shifts at Romano's, smiled through customer complaints, pocketed tips that wouldn't come close to covering the deposit she'd promised Caroline. She avoided phone calls from her mother, sent cheerful texts about wedding planning, and tried not to think about the man in the alley, the gunshot, the cold-eyed stranger in the expensive suit, Adrian Voss. She'd looked him up, of course she had. The internet had surprisingly little concrete information, just whispers and implications. Real estate developer, the articles said. Philanthropist. Connected. The photos showed him at charity galas, ribbon-cutting ceremonies, always in those perfect suits, always with that same controlled expression. But the forums, the Reddit threads, the comment sections, those told a different story. Those used words like dangerous and untouchable, and don't cross him. Lena had witnessed a murder committed by his men. She'd lied to his face. And somehow she'd walked away. She needed to forget it. Move on. Focus on her own increasingly complicated disaster of a situation. On Wednesday afternoon, her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Lena Hayes? The voice was smooth, professional, female. Not one she recognized. Yes? This is Margaret Sinclair calling from Voss Enterprises. Mr. Voss would like to extend an invitation for dinner tomorrow evening at 8. A car will pick you up at your residence. Will that be acceptable? Lena's blood went cold. I'm sorry, what? Dinner with Mr. Voss, tomorrow at 8. Should I confirm your attendance? I don't. Lena's hand tightened on the phone. I don't understand. Why would he want to have dinner with me? Mr. Voss doesn't typically explain his invitations, Ms. Hayes. Should I tell him you decline? Every instinct screamed yes. Decline. Hang up. Change your number. Maybe change your name. Definitely don't get in a car sent by a man you witnessed ordering murder. But there was something in the woman's tone, professional, yes, but also certain, like declining wasn't really an option. What if I say no? Lena asked quietly. A pause. I would strongly advise against that, Ms. Hayes. So not an invitation, a summons. 8 o'clock, Lena heard herself say. I'll be ready. Excellent. The car will arrive at 7:45. Dress appropriately, please. Mr. Voss has impeccable standards. The line went dead. Lena sat on her couch in her tiny apartment, staring at her phone, trying to process what had just happened. Adrian Voss wanted to have dinner with her. The man she'd witnessed, the man whose men had killed someone, wanted to have dinner. Why? She pulled up his photo again, studied that cold, handsome face, tried to remember the moment in the alley, the way he'd looked at her, the questions he'd asked. You married? Engaged. 2. Michael Carson. Oh no. Oh no. He'd looked her up, had to have. Found out there was no Michael Carson. Found out she was a liar. And now he wanted to, what? Confront her? Threaten her? Make her disappear like the man in the alley? Lena's hands were shaking again. She could run, pack a bag, drain her bank account, get on a bus to anywhere else. But where would she go? And for how long? Men like Adrian Voss didn't seem like the type to forget or forgive. No, she'd go to dinner. She'd explain. She'd figure it out. She always did. Except this time, the lie wasn't just about impressing her family. This time, the lie might actually kill her. The car that arrived Thursday night was exactly what Lena expected. Sleek, black, expensive. The driver was a mountain of a man in a dark suit who didn't speak, just opened the door and waited. Lena had spent an hour getting ready, trying to find the balance between respectful and not trying too hard. She'd settled on a simple black dress, heels she could run in if necessary, minimal jewelry. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking as she locked her apartment. The drive took 30 minutes, winding through the city and up into the hills where the old money lived. The car eventually pulled up to a restaurant that didn't even have a sign. Just a discreet entrance, a doorman who looked like he could double as a bouncer, and the kind of exclusivity that screamed if you have to ask, you can't afford it. Ms. Hayes, the maitre d' greeted her like she was expected. Right this way. He led her through a dining room that was more like someone's elegant living room, intimate, quiet, with tables spaced far enough apart that conversations stayed private. Most of the tables were occupied by couples or small groups, everyone dressed like they'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. And at a corner table, away from everyone else, sat Adrian Voss. He stood when she approached. Good manners, she thought absurdly. The man ordered murders but had good table manners. Lena. He gestured to the chair across from him. Thank you for joining me. Did I have a choice? She sat, trying to project confidence she didn't feel. Everyone has choices. He settled back into his chair with that same controlled grace. Some are just wiser than others. Up close, in better light, he was even more striking. Sharp cheekbones, dark eyes that missed nothing, a mouth that probably smiled about as often as glaciers melted. The suit was charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, and he wore it like armor. You're probably wondering why you're here, Voss said. The thought crossed my mind. A waiter appeared, poured wine without being asked, disappeared again. I did some research after our encounter, Voss continued, swirling the wine in his glass. Lena Hayes, 32, works at Romano's, lives alone in a studio apartment in Riverside, no criminal record, no significant online presence, and interestingly, no Michael Carson. There it was. Lena's throat tightened, but she met his gaze. I can explain. Please do. She took a breath. I panicked. Your men were going to kill me. I thought if you believed I was engaged, that someone would notice if I disappeared. You might let me go. So I lied. You lied to save your life? Yes. Using a fictional fiancé? Yes. Voss studied her, and Lena couldn't read his expression at all. Why that particular lie? Why not a boyfriend, a husband, a roommate? Because I'd just come from a wedding planner, Lena said, figuring honesty was her only play now. I'd spent an hour describing a fake fiancé in detail. The lie was fresh, so it came out smoothly. Believable. A wedding planner. His eyebrow rose slightly. For a wedding that doesn't exist. For a wedding that doesn't exist, Lena confirmed. Why? She could lie again, deflect, but something about the way he was looking at her suggested he'd know, and she was tired of lies that kept multiplying like rabbits. My grandmother's turning 85 in 2.5 weeks, Lena said. My whole family will be there. My siblings are all successful, all married or engaged, all living the lives they're supposed to live. And I'm not. I'm the disappointment, the one who couldn't get it together. And I'm tired of seeing that look in my grandmother's eyes every time she asks about my love life. So I told everyone I was engaged, and then I had to actually plan an engagement party to make it convincing. And now I'm $5,000 in debt for a party celebrating a man who doesn't exist, and I don't know how to get out of it. The words tumbled out, more honest than she'd been in months. Maybe it was the wine. Maybe it was the absurdity of the situation. Maybe it was knowing that lying further wouldn't help. Voss was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, That's either very sad or very entertaining. It's both. Your family doesn't know? No one knows. Lena took a sip of wine. Well, the wedding planner knows, but she thinks it's real. And now I'm here, having dinner with the man whose crime I witnessed, confessing all my lies because apparently I have a death wish. You don't have a death wish, Voss said. You have desperation. I recognize it. Is that supposed to be comforting? It's supposed to be accurate. He leaned forward slightly. I'm going to make you an offer, Lena Hayes. Her stomach dropped. What kind of offer? The kind that solves both our problems. I wasn't aware you had a problem, but everyone has problems. He set down his wine glass. Mine is that I need a wife. Lena blinked. I'm sorry, what? Not a real wife, a temporary one, for appearances. His gaze was steady, calculating. I'm in the process of acquiring a significant business interest. The sellers are old-fashioned, family-oriented, skeptical of unmarried men. They want stability, legacy, someone who looks like they're building a future. I need to appear settled, committed, domestic, for approximately 3 weeks, until the deal closes. Lena's brain was struggling to catch up. You want me to pretend to be your wife? I want you to be my wife, legally, for 3 weeks. In return, I'll pose as your fiancé for your grandmother's birthday party. I'll pay for the engagement party, pay off your debts, and compensate you handsomely for your time. And at the end of 3 weeks, we'll have the marriage quietly annulled, and you'll walk away with enough money to start over. It was insane, completely insane. Why me? Lena asked. Because you can lie convincingly under pressure. Because you need money, and I have it. Because you witnessed something you shouldn't have, and this way we're both invested in keeping each other's secrets. He paused. And because you're desperate enough to say yes. That's honest. I don't see the point in pretending otherwise. Lena's mind raced. What would this involve exactly? You would live in my home for 3 weeks, attend social functions as my wife, convince the relevant parties that our marriage is genuine, follow my instructions regarding behavior, appearance, and social interactions. In exchange, I'll give you $200,000. 100,000 now, 100,000 when the annulment is finalized. $200,000. Lena's entire debt, the engagement party, enough left over to actually build a life. Enough to stop lying, stop struggling, stop drowning. And if I say no, she asked, then you walk away from this dinner and we never speak again. You forget what you saw in that alley. I forget you exist. He smiled and it was cold. But you'll still be $5,000 in debt for a party you can't afford, celebrating a fiancé who doesn't exist, with a family who will eventually see through the lie, and I'll find another solution to my problem. John Mikey Tswatatipoe. He was right. He was completely, brutally right. This is crazy, Lena said. Most worthwhile things are. I don't know anything about your world. I'd be terrible at it. I have 3 weeks to teach you. Your business partners, won't they be suspicious? Sudden marriage, no courtship. We'll have a story. A whirlwind romance, love at first sight, something appropriately dramatic and believable. His expression didn't change. I'm very good at controlling narratives. Lena believed it. She looked at him, really looked at him. At the cold eyes that had watched a man die without flinching. At the controlled exterior that probably hid something violent and dangerous. At the man offering her an escape from one lie by diving into another, bigger one. If I do this, she said slowly, I need guarantees. I need to know I'll be safe. That at the end of 3 weeks, I actually get to walk away. You'll be the safest you've ever been, Voss said. No one touches what's mine, not even temporarily. And when the 3 weeks are up, you'll walk away with money and a clean slate. You have my word. Ba swas basis. The word of a man I watched order a murder. The word of a man who keeps his promises. He extended his hand across the table. Do we have a deal, Lena Hayes? She should say no, should walk away, should figure out literally any other solution to her problems. But $200,000, 3 weeks, a chance to make her grandmother happy, to stop lying to her family, to actually have a future that wasn't built on debt and desperation. Lena shook his hand. His grip was firm, cool, and for just a moment she felt the strength in it, the power barely contained beneath the civilized surface. We have a deal, she said. Excellent. He released her hand. The car will pick you up tomorrow at 9. Pack for 3 weeks. Bring anything you'll need. Someone will handle closing out your apartment, settling your outstanding bills. You won't need to go back there. Tomorrow? Lena's head spun. That's fast. I don't believe in wasting time. He stood, and she followed automatically. Welcome to your new life, Mrs. Voss. Let's hope you survive it. It wasn't a joke. Lena watched him leave, watched the other diners subtly track his movement, watched the staff practically bow, and wondered what she'd just agreed to. 3 weeks as the wife of Adrian Voss. 3 weeks in a world she didn't understand, playing a role she hadn't rehearsed, lying to people who were probably far more dangerous than her judgmental family. She thought her fake engagement was spiraling out of control. She had no idea. The car arrived at exactly 9 the next morning, the same silent driver, the same unsettling efficiency. Lena stood in her apartment with 2 suitcases she'd packed and repacked 3 times, wondering if you could prepare for something completely insane or if you just had to jump. She was jumping. Ready, Ms. Hayes? The driver asked. It was the first time she'd heard him speak. No, Lena said honestly. But let's go anyway. The drive took them out of her neighborhood with its cracked sidewalks and corner stores, through downtown with its glass towers, and up into the hills where the city's elite lived behind gates and hedges. The Voss estate, because that was the only word for it, sat at the end of a long private drive, hidden from the road by mature trees and a wall that probably cost more than Lena's entire building. The house itself was modern and massive, all clean lines and glass, perched on the hillside like it owned the view, which it probably did. Jesus, Lena muttered. The driver pulled up to the front entrance, where a woman in her 50s waited, perfectly dressed, perfectly composed. She opened Lena's door before the driver could. Ms. Hayes, I'm Helen, Mr. Voss's household manager. Welcome. May Kutsipao Sipos Setkin. Lena climbed out, feeling completely out of place. Thank you. Mr. Voss is in meetings until this afternoon. I'll show you to your room and get you settled. Helen's tone was professional, but not cold. She gestured for someone to take the suitcases. If you'll follow me. The interior was exactly what Lena expected. Expensive, minimalist, intimidating. High ceilings, art that was probably worth more than she'd make in a lifetime, furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. Everything was shades of white, gray, and black. Clean, controlled, cold. Helen led her up a sweeping staircase to the second floor, down a hallway lined with closed doors to a room at the end. This will be yours, Helen said, opening the door. The bedroom was bigger than Lena's entire apartment. King-sized bed, sitting area, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, a bathroom that could fit her old kitchen twice over. Everything was pristine, untouched, like a hotel room waiting for its first guest. Mr. Voss's room is across the hall, Helen continued. For appearances, you'll need to share space occasionally when we have visitors, but otherwise, this is your private area. There's a closet through that door. Someone will be by this afternoon to take your measurements for appropriate clothing. Appropriate clothing? Lena repeated. Mr. Voss has certain standards for public appearances. You'll need a wardrobe that reflects your new position. Helen's expression softened slightly. I understand this is overwhelming, but Mr. Voss has given very clear instructions that you're to be treated as his wife in every respect. Anything you need, you ask me. Understood? Lena nodded, not trusting her voice. Good. Lunch will be at 1 in the dining room. Someone will come get you. In the meantime, make yourself comfortable. Unpack. There's an information packet on the desk with basics. Wi-Fi password, house layout, emergency contacts. Take your time. Helen left, closing the door quietly behind her. Lena stood in the middle of the enormous room and tried not to panic. This was real. She'd actually done this. She'd agreed to marry a man she'd met twice, a man who'd ordered someone killed, a man who probably had more secrets than she could imagine. For money. For 3 weeks. For a lie that had gotten so big it had swallowed her whole. Her phone buzzed. Her mother. Can't wait for you to bring Michael to Grandma's party. Have you picked out your dress yet? Lena typed back, still deciding. See you soon. Another lie. But at least this one would technically come true. She would bring Michael. Except his name was Adrian, and he was terrifying, and her family had no idea what they were about to walk into. She unpacked mechanically, hanging her pathetic wardrobe in a closet the size of her old bedroom. Her clothes looked sad against all that empty space, like they knew they didn't belong. At 1 o'clock sharp, a young woman knocked on her door. Ms. Hayes, lunch is ready. The dining room could have seated 20 people easily. Instead, there was one place setting at the end of a table that went on forever. One chair, one glass of water, one plate of food that looked like it came from a restaurant. Lena ate alone, in silence, in a house that felt more like a mausoleum than a home. She was finishing when footsteps echoed from the hallway. Adrian Voss appeared in the doorway, still in a suit, phone in his hand. You settled in? He asked, not really looking at her. As much as possible. He glanced up, and for the first time she saw him in his own space. He fit here, in this cold, controlled environment. He probably designed it. Good. We need to go over some things. He gestured for her to follow him. His office was down another hallway, all dark wood and leather, with a desk that probably weighed more than Lena. He motioned for her to sit, then pulled out a folder. First, the legal part. He slid papers across the desk. Marriage license, prenuptial agreement, non-disclosure agreement. Read them. Sign them. My attorney will witness. Lena picked up the prenup, scanning the dense legal language. This says I get nothing if the marriage ends due to infidelity or criminal activity on my part. Standard protection. This says you retain all assets acquired before, during, and after the marriage. Also standard. This says I can't speak to media, write a book, or discuss any aspect of our arrangement for 10 years after the annulment. I value my privacy. Lena set down the papers. You really trust no one, do you? Trust is for people who can afford mistakes. Adrian leaned back in his chair. I can't. Sign the papers, Lena. You agreed to this. She did. She signed everything, watched his attorney, a severe woman who appeared from nowhere, witness and notarize, watched the documents disappear back into the folder. Now the story, Adrian said. We met 6 months ago at a charity gala. You were waitressing. I was bored. We talked, exchanged numbers, started seeing each other quietly. 3 weeks ago, I proposed. You said yes. We're keeping it private because I don't like media attention and you're not comfortable with publicity. Simple, consistent, hard to disprove. What if someone asked details? What I was wearing, what you said, make it up, keep it vague. It was perfect works better than specifics anyway. He pulled out another folder. These are the people you need to know. Study them. Names, faces, relationships, businesses. The Castellanos are the family I'm negotiating with. Antonio is the patriarch. Maria is his wife. Their son Marco runs day-to-day operations. They're traditional, Catholic, family-focused. They need to believe we're solid. Lena flipped through photos of people she'd never met, trying to memorize faces. When do I meet them? Tomorrow night, dinner at their home. You'll be charming, demure, appropriately affectionate. You'll convince them that I'm a changed man, settling down, ready for the responsibilities that come with their partnership. And what if I can't? Adrian's gaze was flat. Then we both lose, and you don't get paid. So I suggest you can. Lena's jaw tightened. You know, for someone who needs my help, you're not very nice about it. I'm not paying you to like me. I'm paying you to perform. He stood. The stylist will be here in an hour. Helen has your schedule for the next 3 weeks. Study it. Learn it. Don't embarrass me. He walked out, leaving Lena alone with a stack of folders and the creeping realization that she'd signed up for something far more complicated than she'd imagined. The stylist turned out to be 3 people, a woman named Simone, who looked Lena up and down like she was a project, and 2 assistants who took measurements, notes, and photos with ruthless efficiency. Mr. Voss wants elegance, Simone said, circling Lena. Classic, understated, expensive. Nothing flashy, nothing cheap. You'll need evening wear, casual wear, jewelry, shoes, accessories, everything bespoke. That sounds expensive, Lena said. Mr. Voss doesn't concern himself with cost, only results. Simone pulled out fabric swatches. Tell me, what colors do you like? I don't know. Blue. Blue. Simone made a note. We'll do midnight blue for evening, dove gray for day, cream for the engagement party. You'll need your hair done. We'll schedule that. Nails, obviously. Makeup lessons. Posture coaching. Posture coaching? You slouch. Mr. Voss's wife doesn't slouch. Simone's smile was sharp. Don't worry, we'll make you perfect. Lena spent 3 hours being poked, prodded, measured, and critiqued. By the time they left, she felt like she'd been dismantled and poorly reassembled. Helen appeared with tea and sympathy. First day is always the hardest. Does it get easier? Lena asked. No, but you get better at pretending it does. Helen set down the tea tray. Dinner is at 7. Mr. Voss expects you in the dining room. Try to relax until then. Relax. Right. Lena went back to her room and studied the files Adrian had given her. Antonio Castellano, 72, built his empire from nothing, valued loyalty above everything. Maria Castellano, 68, devoted wife and mother, suspicious of outsiders. Marco Castellano, 45, ruthless businessman who'd taken his father's company to new heights. And they needed to believe that Adrian Voss, dangerous, cold, controlled Adrian Voss, was in love. Good luck with that. Dinner was less lonely than lunch. Adrian was there at the opposite end of the table, working on his phone between bites. They didn't speak. The silence was worse than conversation. Can I ask you something? Lena said finally. He glanced up. What? Why do you live like this? It's beautiful, but it's... She gestured around. Empty. I like empty. Empty is clean, predictable, lonely. I didn't ask for your psychological analysis. I'm not analyzing. I'm just saying, you have this massive house, and you eat alone in silence. That's sad. Adrian set down his fork with deliberate precision. I don't do sentiment, Lena. I don't need warmth or companionship or whatever you think is missing. I need control, efficiency, and results. This house reflects that. If you find it uncomfortable, that's your problem, not mine. Must be exhausting, Lena said quietly. What? Keeping everything so controlled all the time, never letting anything messy in. His eyes went cold. You don't know anything about me. I know you need a fake wife because you can't manage a real relationship. I know you live in a museum instead of a home. I know you're so terrified of weakness that you've eliminated anything that might make you human. Lena stood. But sure, I don't know anything. She walked out before he could respond, heart pounding, half expecting him to follow and tell her the deal was off. He didn't. She spent the evening in her room trying not to think about how she'd just antagonized the most dangerous man she'd ever met. The next morning, Helen knocked early. Mr. Voss wants to see you in the gym. The gym? Downstairs? Follow me. The gym was predictably excessive, top-of-the-line equipment, floor-to-ceiling mirrors, a view of the grounds. Adrian was there in workout clothes, hitting a punching bag with controlled violence. He stopped when Lena entered. You need to learn to defend yourself. What? If you're going to be in my world, even temporarily, you need basic self-defense. Marcus will train you. He nodded to a man in the corner, huge, scarred, silent. 1 hour, every morning, starting now. I didn't agree to this. You agreed to follow my instructions. This is an instruction. Adrian grabbed a towel. Marcus is the best. Pay attention. Learn. It might save your life. He left, and Marcus stepped forward. We'll start simple, he said, voice surprisingly gentle. Basic strikes. How to break a grip. How to run effectively. Nothing fancy. Just practical. The hour was brutal. Lena learned how to punch without breaking her thumb, how to use her weight against someone bigger, how to target vulnerable spots. Marcus was patient but demanding, correcting her form, making her repeat movements until her muscles screamed. Why does he think I need this? Lena asked during a water break. Marcus shrugged. Mr. Voss prepares for every possibility, even unlikely ones. Has his world always been this dangerous? That's not my story to tell. Marcus gestured for her to continue. Again, faster this time. By the time the session ended, Lena was exhausted, sore, and grudgingly impressed. Maybe Adrian was paranoid, or maybe he knew something she didn't. She showered, changed into clothes Helen had laid out, designer jeans and a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than her rent, and found Adrian waiting in the foyer. We're going out, he said. Where? Shopping. You need a ring. The jewelry store was the kind of place Lena had only seen in movies, private appointment, champagne, a saleswoman who treated Adrian like royalty. They were led to a back room where engagement rings sparkled under perfect lighting. Choose, Adrian said. Lena stared at the options. You want me to pick my own fake engagement ring? I want you to pick one you'll actually wear convincingly. Make it believable. She looked at the rings, all beautiful, all absurdly expensive. Her hand hovered over a simple solitaire, elegant, classic, not trying too hard. That one, she said. Adrian nodded to the saleswoman, who produced the ring in Lena's size like magic. He took it, and for a moment, Lena thought he was going to just hand it to her. Instead, he knelt. What are you doing? Lena whispered. Practice. His voice was low. The Castellanos will ask about the proposal. We need to sell it. He took her hand, slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. Of course it did. Lena Hayes, he said, and his tone was so convincing she almost forgot this was fake. Will you marry me? She was supposed to say yes. That was the script. But looking at him kneeling there, cold eyes watching her, waiting for her performance, something in her chest twisted. This was all wrong. This beautiful moment, this expensive ring, this man who felt nothing, it was all a transaction. Yes, she said, because that was her job. He stood, and the saleswoman applauded like this was real. Adrian paid cash, didn't even ask the price, and they left with Lena wearing a ring that probably cost more than her car. In the car, She twisted it on her finger. How much was this? Does it matter? I'm wearing someone's yearly salary on my hand. Yes, it matters. Then don't lose it. He was back to his phone, already detached from the moment. Tonight is important. The Castellanos are traditional, Maria especially. She'll be watching you, judging you, looking for cracks. Don't give her any. And if she asks about our relationship, tell her we're in love. Use details from our story. Be warm, but not overeager. Touch me occasionally, casual, natural, like you've done it 1,000 times. I've never touched you. Adrian glanced up. Then tonight will be your debut. Make it convincing. They spent the afternoon rehearsing. Adrian was a brutal director, correcting her posture, her tone, her expressions. He made her practice walking into a room with him, sitting beside him, laughing at things he said. It felt like theater, except the audience could kill them if they didn't believe the performance. You're too stiff, he said after the 5th run-through. Relax. I can't relax when you're critiquing every breath I take. Then learn to perform under pressure. That's the job. Lena wanted to throw something at him. Instead, she took a breath and tried again. By the time they were ready to leave for the Castellanos, Lena was wearing a midnight blue dress that Simone had somehow produced in 24 hours, heels that made her 3 inches taller, and makeup that made her look like someone who belonged in Adrian's world. Better, Adrian said when she came downstairs. That's the nicest thing you've said to me. Don't get used to it. The Castellano home was in the same exclusive neighborhood, but where Adrian's house was modern and cold, theirs was warm. Mediterranean-style architecture, terracotta tiles, lights glowing from windows. Lena could hear laughter from inside as they approached. Remember, Adrian said quietly, his hand settling on her lower back. We're in love, newly engaged, happy. Can you do happy? I can fake anything, Lena said. That's why you hired me. His hand pressed slightly harder against her back. Then let's see it. The door opened before they could knock. Maria Castellano stood there, elegant in a simple dress, smile warm but eyes sharp. Adrian! She embraced him, then turned to Lena. And you must be the woman who finally caught him. Come in, come in. Inside was chaos in the best way, kids running around, adults talking loudly, food smells from the kitchen, family photos covering every surface. It was everything Adrian's house wasn't. Antonio appeared, bear-hugging Adrian like an old friend. About time you settled down, boy. Thought you were going to die alone in that fortress of yours. I had to find the right woman, Adrian said smoothly, pulling Lena close. Maria, Antonio, this is Lena, my fiancé. Lena smiled, let Maria kiss her cheek, shook Antonio's hand. Thank you so much for having us. Having you? You're family now. Maria linked arms with Lena. Come, let me show you off. Everyone's dying to meet the woman who tamed Adrian Voss. They were swept into the living room, introduced to cousins and siblings and children whose names Lena immediately forgot. Everyone wanted to know the story, how they met, when he proposed, when the wedding would be. Adrian was perfect. He smiled, laughed at the right moments, kept his hand on Lena's waist or shoulder or back, creating the illusion of casual intimacy. When Maria asked about the proposal, he told the story they'd rehearsed with just enough detail to sound genuine. He got down on one knee in the middle of this exclusive jewelry store, Lena added, playing her part. I thought he was insane. I was insane, Adrian said, looking at her with an expression that almost seemed genuine. Crazy about you. The way he said it made Lena's breath catch. He was good, too good. For a moment, she almost believed him. Dinner was loud, warm, everything Lena's own family dinners never were. They sat squeezed together at a table that was too small for the number of people, passing dishes, talking over each other, laughing. Adrian's hand rested on her thigh under the table, possessive and warm, and Lena wondered if he even noticed he was doing it, or if it was all performance. You make him happy, Maria said quietly, leaning close to Lena while the men argued about business. I can see it. He's different with you. Lena's throat tightened. He makes me happy too. It should have been easy to say. It was the script. But something about lying to this warm, genuine woman made her feel sick. After dinner, the men disappeared to Antonio's study to talk business. Maria pulled Lena into the kitchen under the guise of helping with dessert. "Can I ask you something, dear?" Maria's tone was gentle but probing. "Do you love him?" Lena's hand stilled on the plate she was drying. "Yes?" "I don't mean the pretty story you tell people. I mean really. Do you love him? Because Adrian, he's complicated, damaged maybe. He needs someone who sees past all that control, all that ice, someone who can reach him." Lena met Maria's eyes and saw real concern there, maternal worry for a man who probably didn't want it or deserve it. "I see him," Lena said quietly, and it wasn't entirely a lie. She did see Adrian, saw the loneliness he denied, the control he clung to, the walls he'd built so high nothing could get through. "I know what I'm getting into." Maria smiled, squeezed her hand. "Good. He needs you, whether he admits it or not." When they rejoined the men, Antonio was laughing, Adrian was smiling, actually smiling, and Lena realized this was the deal being closed. This dinner, this performance, this lie they were selling so convincingly that even she was starting to believe parts of it. They left late, Maria hugging them both, Antonio making Adrian promise to bring Lena back soon. In the car, the silence felt different, less hostile, more exhausted. "You did well," Adrian said finally. "So did you. Very convincing. It's not over. They'll want to see us again, multiple times. Can you sustain it?" Lena looked at the ring on her finger, catching light from passing streetlights. "I sustained a fake fiancé for weeks. I can sustain a fake husband. It's not the same." "Why?" "Because this one's real on paper. Because this one matters more." Adrian's jaw was tight. "If they see through this, I lose everything. So, yes, it matters more." "And what do I lose?" Lena asked quietly. He glanced at her. "Your payout. Your fresh start. Same as me." But it didn't feel the same because Adrian would survive losing a business deal. He had money, power, options. What did Lena have? A fake engagement party? A family built on lies? And 3 weeks pretending to be someone she wasn't for a man who'd never be real. Back at the house, she kicked off her heels in the foyer, immediately 4 inches shorter. "That was exhausting," she said. "You'll get used to it." "Will I? Or will I just get better at faking it?" Adrian looked at her for a long moment. "Does the difference matter?" Lena didn't have an answer. She went upstairs, peeled off the expensive dress, scrubbed off the makeup. In the mirror, she looked like herself again, tired, uncertain, drowning in lies so deep she couldn't see the surface anymore. Her phone buzzed. Her mother. 3 days until Grandma's party. So excited to finally meet Michael. Lena looked at the message, then at the ring on her finger, then at the closed door across the hall where Adrian was probably working, always working, never stopping long enough to feel anything. She typed back, "Me too. Can't wait." 3 more weeks, 21 days, 504 hours. She could do this. She had to. Because backing out now meant losing everything, the money, the story, the carefully constructed lie that had become her entire life. And maybe that made her as damaged as Adrian, as willing to sacrifice truth for survival. But at least she was honest about being a liar. That had to count for something. The days blurred together in a strange rhythm Lena hadn't expected. Mornings with Marcus in the gym, her body learning to defend itself in ways that felt both empowering and terrifying. Afternoons with Simone and her team, being transformed into someone she barely recognized. Evenings performing for the Castellanos or Adrian's business associates, playing the role of devoted fiancé with increasing ease. And through it all, Adrian remained a stranger she was married to. They'd signed the papers 3 days after that first dinner with the Castellanos. A quiet ceremony in a judge's office, witnessed by Helen and Adrian's attorney, cold and transactional. Lena wore a simple dress. Adrian wore his usual suit. They exchanged vows that meant nothing, signed documents that meant everything, and walked out legally bound to each other for the next 3 weeks. "How does it feel to be Mrs. Voss?" Helen had asked afterward, half joking. Lena had looked at the marriage certificate in her hand, at her name next to his, and felt nothing. Temporary. But temporary was starting to feel longer than she'd anticipated. It was day 8 when things shifted. Lena was in the library, because of course Adrian had a library, floor-to-ceiling books he probably never read, trying to memorize more names and faces for an upcoming charity gala. Adrian found her there, tie loosened, looking more exhausted than she'd seen him. "We need to talk about your grandmother's party," he said, pouring himself a drink from the bar cart. "It's in 5 days." "I know." Lena closed the folder. "What about it?" "Your family. What do I need to know?" She hadn't expected him to ask, hadn't expected him to care about anything beyond the performance. "My mother is Claire," Lena said slowly. "She's a nurse. She'll love you because you have a pulse and seem successful. My father is Robert, retired teacher. He'll be skeptical because everyone's skeptical of men who date his daughters. My older sister Maya is a lawyer, married to another lawyer, 2 perfect kids. My younger brother Connor is in medical school, engaged to his high school sweetheart. And you're the disappointment." It wasn't a question. Lena bristled anyway. "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to." Adrian sat across from her, studying her with those cold, calculating eyes. "Your whole family overachieving while you work at a restaurant and invent fake fiancés. The math isn't complicated." "You don't know anything about my family." "I know enough. They're the reason you're here, the reason you needed this deal badly enough to say yes." He took a sip of his drink. "What are they going to think of me?" "Honestly, they'll probably think you're too good to be true, which is ironic, considering I'm a criminal." Lena's breath caught. He'd never said it out loud before, never acknowledged what they both knew. "Are you?" she asked quietly. "Does it matter? You already took my money, already signed the papers, little late for moral qualms. I'm not asking because I'm judging. I'm asking because I want to know who I'm bringing to meet my grandmother." Adrian set down his glass with deliberate care. "You're bringing the man I'm pretending to be. Successful businessman, real estate developer, philanthropist. Everything else is irrelevant." "Is it?" "Because my grandmother has spent 85 years reading people. She'll know if something's off." "Then make sure nothing's off." His tone turned sharp. "That's your job, Lena. Sell the story. Make them believe. I'll play my part. You play yours." He stood to leave, and Lena found herself speaking before she could stop herself. "Do you ever get tired of it?" Adrian paused. "Tired of what?" "Performing. Pretending. Never letting anyone see who you actually are." For a moment, something flickered across his face. Recognition, maybe, or pain quickly buried. Then it was gone, replaced by that familiar cold mask. "I don't have the luxury of being tired," he said. "Neither do you. The gala is tomorrow night. Be ready." He walked out, leaving Lena alone with her folders and her questions, and the growing sense that Adrian Voss was far more damaged than dangerous. The gala was exactly what Lena expected. Excessive wealth dressed up as charity, people in designer gowns pretending to care about causes while networking and posturing. Simone had put her in an emerald green dress that clung in ways that made Lena self-conscious, until she saw Adrian's reaction when she came downstairs. He'd stopped mid-sentence on a phone call just for a second, eyes tracking over her before he recovered and finished his conversation. "You look acceptable," he'd said after hanging up. "You look tolerable yourself," Lena had shot back. In the car, he'd briefed her again. Names, faces, who to impress, who to avoid. Lena's head spun with information, but she nodded along, trying to absorb it all. The venue was a museum, temporarily closed to the public for this private event. Chandeliers dripped crystal. Champagne flowed. A string quartet played in the corner. Lena felt like she'd stepped into someone else's life. "Stay close," Adrian murmured as they entered. "Smile. Look adoring. Let me do most of the talking." They made their rounds. Adrian introduced her as his wife, still strange to hear, and Lena played her part. She laughed at appropriate moments, touched his arm with casual affection, let him guide her through conversations with his hand on her lower back. And somewhere in the middle of it all, she realized she was getting good at this. Too good. The lies came easier now. The performance felt natural. She was becoming the woman she was pretending to be. "Adrian Voss!" A man approached, older, heavy-set, smile too wide. "Heard you finally settled down. Didn't believe it until now." "Thomas?" Adrian's handshake was firm but brief. This is my wife, Lena. Wife, congratulations! Thomas's eyes raked over Lena in a way that made her skin crawl. Lucky man. Very lucky. Adrian's hand tightened on her waist. I'm aware. They extracted themselves quickly, and Lena felt Adrian's tension radiating through his touch. Friend of yours? She asked quietly. Business associate, nothing more. He looked at me like I was dessert. He looks at everyone like that. Ignore him. But as the evening wore on, Lena noticed Thomas watching them, watching her specifically. It made her uneasy in ways she couldn't articulate. She was getting champagne from the bar when he appeared beside her. Lena, right? His smile was all teeth. Must be quite a change, going from whatever you did before to all this. I'm sorry? No judgment. Adrian's known for upgrading, just making conversation. Lena's jaw tightened. I should get back to my husband. Of course, of course. Thomas leaned closer, and she smelled whiskey on his breath. Just a friendly warning, sweetheart. Adrian Voss isn't what he seems. That charity work, that clean reputation, it's all smoke. You seem nice. Too nice for his world. Watch yourself. He walked away before Lena could respond, leaving her shaken and angry. She found Adrian talking to a couple she didn't recognize. He glanced at her, frowned slightly. Excuse me, he said to the couple, then guided Lena toward a quieter corner. What happened? Nothing. You're a terrible liar when you're upset. What happened? Thomas happened. He cornered me at the bar, said some things. Adrian's expression went dangerously still. What things? That you're not what you seem, that I should watch myself, that you have a reputation. Lena met his eyes. Is he right? Partially. My reputation is complicated. That's not news. Adrian's voice was controlled, but there was an edge to it. What exactly did he say? Just that you're dangerous, that I'm too nice for your world. You are too nice for my world. Adrian's hand came up, cupping her face in a gesture that looked tender but felt calculated. But you're in it now, and Thomas needs to learn boundaries. Don't do anything stupid. I won't. But his eyes were cold. Stay here. I'll be right back. He crossed the room to where Thomas stood, and Lena watched them talk. It looked civil from a distance, but she could see the tension in both men's shoulders, the way Thomas's smile faded, the way Adrian leaned in to say something that made Thomas pale. When Adrian returned, his expression was neutral. What did you say to him? Lena asked. That my wife is off limits for conversation, speculation, or consideration. That if he values his business interests, he'll remember that. You threatened him. I clarified boundaries. Adrian took her hand. Dance with me. What? We're newlyweds at a gala. We should dance. He led her to the dance floor before she could protest, pulling her close as the quartet shifted to something slow and romantic. His hand settled on her waist, hers on his shoulder, and they moved together with the awkwardness of two people who'd never done this before. You're tense, Adrian murmured. You just threatened a man for talking to me. I protected what's mine. There's a difference. I'm not yours. This is temporary, remember? His hand tightened slightly. For the next 2 weeks, you are mine. That's the agreement. People need to believe it, which means I need to act like it. And after? When we annul this and go our separate ways? After doesn't matter right now. But it did matter. It mattered more than Lena wanted to admit, because somewhere in the past week, between the training sessions and the dinner parties and the quiet moments in that cold house, she'd started to see Adrian as something more than the dangerous stranger she'd married. She'd started to see his loneliness, his control born from fear, not strength, the way he never quite relaxed, never quite trusted, never quite let anyone close enough to hurt him. And worse, she'd started to care. You're staring, Adrian said. I'm trying to figure you out. Don't bother, I'm not that complicated. Yes, you are. You're the most complicated person I've ever met. Lena's voice was quiet. You live in that fortress of a house. You keep everyone at arm's length. You've built this entire empire on control, but you're lonely. I see it. You see what you want to see. Do I? Because right now, Holding you like this, I see a man who's terrified of being human. Adrian's jaw tightened. You don't know what you're talking about. Then tell me I'm wrong. Tell me you're not lonely. Tell me you don't wish, even just a little, that this was real. The music swelled around them. Other couples danced, oblivious, and Adrian looked at her with something that might have been vulnerability if he'd let it show. It can't be real, he said finally. Real is messy, unpredictable, dangerous. And your world isn't? My world is controlled danger. That's different. The song ended. Adrian released her, stepping back, and the moment shattered. We should go, he said. Early morning tomorrow. In the car they didn't speak. The silence felt heavier than before, weighted with things unsaid. Lena twisted the ring on her finger, feeling its presence like a brand. Back at the house, she headed for the stairs, but Adrian's voice stopped her. Lena, she turned. Thank you. For tonight. You played your part well. So did you. They stood there in the foyer, husband and wife who weren't, strangers who were becoming something neither wanted to name. Good night, Adrian. Good night. Lena climbed the stairs, went to her room, closed the door. She could hear him moving around downstairs, then eventually his footsteps in the hallway, his door closing across from hers. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering how you were supposed to sleep when your fake marriage was starting to feel more real than anything you'd ever had. The next morning brought her grandmother's party crashing back into focus. 4 days away. 4 days until she introduced Adrian to her family as Michael, until the lies she'd told her relatives collided with the lies she'd told Adrian's associates, until everything she'd built threatened to collapse. She was having breakfast alone. Adrian was already gone. Early meeting when Helen appeared with a package. This arrived for you, Mrs. Voss. Lena flinched at the name. What is it? I believe it's from Mr. Voss. Inside was a jewelry box. Inside that, a delicate bracelet, white gold, understated, beautiful, and a note in Adrian's precise handwriting, for tomorrow. It belonged to my mother. Wear it if you want. Lena stared at the bracelet, at the note, at this unexpected gesture from a man who claimed not to do sentiment. It was the first truly personal thing he'd given her. She put it on, feeling the weight of it, and wondered what it meant that Adrian Voss had just given her a piece of his past. Helen was watching her with something that might have been approval. It suits you. Did you know his mother? Lena asked. I've worked for Mr. Voss for 8 years. He never speaks of her. Helen paused. The fact that he gave you that, it's significant. Or he's just selling the story. Devoted husband, family heirlooms, all that? But Helen shook her head. Mr. Voss doesn't share things that matter. If he gave you that bracelet, it's because he trusts you with it, whatever his reasons. After Helen left, Lena sat alone with her coffee and her questions, looking at the bracelet catching morning light, trying to reconcile the cold, controlled man she'd married with someone who'd give away pieces of his mother's jewelry. Her phone rang. Her mother. Lena almost didn't answer, but avoiding it would only make things worse. Hi, Mom. Sweetheart, just confirming final details. The party's at 3 on Sunday at the Riverside Country Club. You and Michael are still coming, right? Wouldn't miss it. I can't wait to meet him. Your grandmother keeps asking about him. She's so happy you found someone. Her mother's voice was warm, genuine. You sound good, honey. Different, happier maybe. Lena's throat tightened. I'm good, Mom. Really good. They talked for a few more minutes, her mother chattering about menu choices and decorations and which relatives were coming. Lena made appropriate noises, agreed to everything, hung up feeling like she'd swallowed glass. She found Adrian in his office that evening, surrounded by papers, phone pressed to his ear. He glanced up when she entered, held up a finger for her to wait. I don't care what they're offering, he said into the phone. The terms aren't negotiable. They either accept or we walk. He listened. Good. Let me know when it's signed. He hung up, turned his attention to Lena. Problem? Just wanted to confirm Sunday. Party starts at 3, Riverside Country Club. It's my grandmother's 85th, so there'll be a lot of people. Extended family, friends, probably 200 guests. I'm aware I have it on my calendar. And you're still okay playing Michael? Adrian's expression didn't change. I agreed to the terms. I keep my agreements. Even if it means spending an afternoon with my judgmental family? I've spent afternoons with worse. He leaned back in his chair. What should I expect? Besides judgment. Lena sat across from him. My mother will love you because you exist and seem successful. My father will interrogate you about your intentions. Maya will analyze everything you say looking for red flags. Connor will be oblivious because he's Connor. And my grandmother, what about her? She'll see right through us if we're not careful. She's the sharpest person I know. Nothing gets past her. Then we'll be careful. Adrian's gaze was steady. We've convinced the Castellanos. We've convinced my business associates. We can convince your family. The Castellanos wanted to believe. My family will want to find flaws. Let them look. They won't find any. He stood, came around the desk. We've been doing this for over a week now, Lena. We know how to sell it. Your family won't be any different. They're everything different. They know me. They know when I'm lying. Then don't lie. Be yourself. Just yourself with me. His hand came up, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear in a gesture that looked practiced but felt too natural. They'll believe what they see. Make sure what they see is convincing. Lena's breath caught at his proximity, at the casual intimacy of the touch. And what about after? When this is over and I have to explain why my husband left me? Tell them the truth, that I wasn't good enough, that you deserve better. They'll believe that easily enough. Will they? Lena searched his face. Or will they wonder why I couldn't keep the successful, handsome businessman who seemed so devoted? Adrian's hand dropped. That's not my problem. That's the price you agreed to pay. Right, the price. Lena stood. Sometimes I forget this is just a transaction. Don't forget, it's the only thing keeping this from getting complicated. But it was already complicated. They both knew it. The way they moved around each other now, the casual touches that had become habit, the moments when the performance felt more real than the truth. Lena left his office before she could say something stupid, something that would shatter the careful distance they'd maintained. The next day, Marcus pushed her harder in training. She was getting better, faster, more confident, but she was also getting frustrated. Why am I doing this? She demanded after the 10th failed attempt at a particular move. I'm here for 3 weeks. I'm not joining Adrian's world permanently. This is pointless. Marcus regarded her calmly. Mr. Voss doesn't do pointless. If he wants you trained, there's a reason. Yeah? What reason? You'd have to ask him. But Lena didn't want to ask him. Didn't want another conversation where Adrian shut down her questions with cold logic. That evening, they had dinner with the Castellanos again. More family, more warmth, more performance. Lena was getting exhausted from smiling, from pretending, from being someone she wasn't. Maria pulled her aside while the men talked business. You seem tired, dear. Just a busy week, Lena said. Wedding planning is stressful, especially with Adrian's schedule. Maria's hand was gentle on her arm. Are you happy? Truly? The question hit harder than it should have. Was she happy? She was living in a mansion, wearing designer clothes, pretending to be married to a man who was either her salvation or her destruction. Happy felt like the wrong word. I'm adjusting, Lena said carefully. To Adrian or to his world? Both. Maria smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. He's not an easy man to love, but I think you already know that. I'm not trying to change him. Good. Men like Adrian don't change. They just find someone patient enough to weather who they are. Maria glanced toward where Adrian stood with Antonio, deep in conversation. But sometimes, if you're lucky, they let you see beneath all that armor. And what's underneath? That's worth the wait. Lena wanted to ask if Maria knew what Adrian really was, what he really did. But the answer was probably yes, and that scared her more than ignorance. That night, driving home, Adrian was quiet. Lena watched the city lights blur past, her mind churning. Maria said something interesting, she said finally. What? That you're not an easy man to love. Adrian's hands tightened on the steering wheel. She's right. Is that why you've never tried? Actually being with someone? I've been with people. That's not what I asked. He was quiet for a long moment, then, love is vulnerability. Vulnerability is weakness. I can't afford weakness. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. It's the truth. No, it's what you tell yourself to justify being alone. Lena turned to face him. You're not weak, Adrian. You're terrified. There's a difference. You think you know me after a week? I think I know loneliness when I see it. I think I know what it looks like when someone builds walls so high they forget how to let people in. She paused. I think I know what it's like to be so afraid of disappointing people that you stop trying altogether. Adrian pulled into the driveway, killed the engine, but didn't move. Is that what you think this is? Me being afraid? I think you're the most controlled, calculating person I've ever met, and I think that takes an enormous amount of fear to maintain. He turned to look at her finally, and in the dim light, she saw something crack in his expression. You're right. I am afraid. Afraid of losing control. Afraid of what happens when you let people close enough to hurt you. Afraid of becoming what? Weak, like my father. It was the first real thing he'd shared, the first glimpse beneath the armor. Lena held her breath, afraid to break the moment. What happened to your father? She asked quietly. He loved someone who destroyed him, trusted someone who used it against him. And when it all fell apart, he couldn't recover. He gave someone that kind of power over him, and it killed him. Adrian's voice was flat. I swore I'd never do that. Never give anyone that kind of leverage. I'm sorry. Don't be. It taught me everything I needed to know about survival. It taught you how to exist, not how to live. There's a difference. Adrian opened his door, ending the conversation. We should go in. Big day tomorrow. But Lena caught his arm before he could leave. For what it's worth, I don't think you're weak. I think you're human. And that's not the same thing. He looked at where her hand rested on his arm, then at her face. You're making this harder than it needs to be. How? By making me forget this isn't real. The confession hung between them, raw and unexpected. Then Adrian pulled away, got out of the car, and walked into the house without looking back. Lena sat in the car for a long moment, heart pounding, trying to process what had just happened. He felt it too. Whatever this was growing between them, shifting from performance to something neither could control. And that should have terrified her. Instead, it made her feel less alone than she had in years. Sunday arrived with the weight of inevitability. Lena woke early, stomach churning with anxiety that had nothing to do with the performance she was about to give, and everything to do with the man sleeping across the hall. They hadn't spoken about what Adrian had said in the car, about forgetting this wasn't real, about her making it harder than it needed to be. Instead, they'd spent the past 2 days in careful proximity, polite, distant, back to the roles they'd established. Except now Lena knew what was beneath his control, and that made everything different. She dressed in the outfit Simone had selected, a pale pink dress that her mother would love, elegant but not trying too hard. The bracelet Adrian had given her sat on her wrist, catching light. She twisted it nervously, wondering if her family would ask about it, if she'd have to lie about one more thing. Adrian was already downstairs when she came down, looking perfect in tailored slacks and a button-down shirt, no tie. More casual than she'd ever seen him, more approachable. Ready? He asked. No. But we're going anyway. In the car, he handed her a folder. Your family. Everything I need to know. Lena was surprised he'd prepared. You researched them? I research everything. He glanced at her. Your father served in the military before teaching. Your mother volunteers at 3 different charities. Maya graduated top of her class at Columbia Law. Connor's doing his residency at Presbyterian. Your grandmother was a civil rights activist in the 60s, arrested twice during protests, still politically active. You really did your homework. I don't walk into situations unprepared. He paused. You look nervous. I am nervous. I'm bringing my fake husband to meet my family using my fake fiancé's name. This is insane. We've done insane before. We're good at it. The Castellanos wanted to believe. My family will want to find cracks. Adrian's hand found hers, threading their fingers together. The gesture was becoming familiar, practiced, except this time it felt less like performance and more like reassurance. "Then we don't give them any cracks," he said quietly. The Riverside Country Club was exactly as Lena remembered. Understated elegance, old money trying not to look like it was trying. The parking lot was already full, and Lena's anxiety ratcheted higher with each step toward the entrance. "Wait." She stopped just outside the door. "I need to tell you something." Adrian turned, patient but wary. "My grandmother," Lena said. "She's dying. Cancer. She has maybe 6 months, according to the doctors. That's why this party matters so much. Why I needed Michael to exist. Because I wanted her to see me happy before—" Her voice cracked. "Before she doesn't get to see anything anymore." Adrian's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "You should have told me that earlier. Would it have changed anything?" "No, but I would have understood better." His hand came up, cupping her cheek in that gesture that was becoming too natural. "We'll make today perfect for her. I promise." And somehow, Lena believed him. Inside was controlled chaos. Decorations in grandmother's favorite colors, tables laden with food, photographs spanning 85 years displayed on easels. And people. So many people, all talking, laughing, celebrating a woman who'd lived a full life and wasn't done yet. Lena's mother spotted them immediately, face lighting up. "Lena, and this must be Michael!" Claire Hayes swept them both into hugs, then held Adrian at arm's length, examining him. "Oh, he's handsome. You didn't mention how handsome he was." "Mom?" Lena protested weakly. "I'm just saying." Claire beamed. "Come, come. Everyone's dying to meet you both." They were pulled into the crowd, introduced to cousins and aunts and uncles and family friends. Adrian played Michael perfectly, charming without being smooth, warm without being fake, fielding questions about their relationship with the ease of someone who lied for a living. "How did you two meet?" someone asked. "At a charity event," Adrian said, the rehearsed story flowing smoothly. "Lena was working. I was bored out of my mind. She made me laugh. First time in months." "Love at first sight?" another aunt asked hopefully. "More like interest at first sight," Lena said, playing her part. He was persistent, though. Very persistent. Adrian's arm settled around her waist, pulling her close. "She made me work for it." The lies came so easily now, wrapped in just enough truth to feel genuine, and Lena hated how good they were at this, how seamlessly they performed for an audience who had no idea they were watching theater. Her father found them near the bar, handshake firm, eyes assessing. "Michael Carson, Robert Hayes. Good to finally meet you." "Sir, Lena's told me a lot about you." "I'm sure she has." Robert's smile was polite, but his gaze was sharp. "Walk with me for a minute?" Lena tensed, but Adrian squeezed her hand reassuringly before following her father toward the terrace. She watched them go, heart pounding. Maya appeared at her elbow. "So that's the mysterious Michael. That's him. He's hot, I'll give you that." Maya sipped her wine. "But also suspiciously perfect. What's the catch?" "There's no catch." "Come on, Lena. Successful, handsome, clearly into you, willing to deal with our family. There's always a catch." Lena forced a laugh. "You're so cynical. I'm a lawyer. It's my job." Maya's expression softened. "Seriously, though, you happy?" It was the same question Maria had asked, and it didn't get easier with repetition. "I'm happy," Lena said, and part of her wanted it to be true. Outside, Robert had guided Adrian to a quiet corner of the terrace, away from other guests. "I'm going to be direct," Robert said. "My daughter shows up after months of radio silence, suddenly engaged to a man we've never met. That raises questions." "I understand your concern," Adrian said calmly. "Do you?" "Because Lena's been hurt before. She doesn't always make the best decisions when it comes to relationships, and I need to know if you're one of those decisions." "I love your daughter, sir." The lie came out smooth, practiced. "I know this seems fast, but when you find someone who fits, why wait?" "Why wait indeed?" Robert studied him. "What do you do for a living, Michael?" Adrian had anticipated this question, had prepared for it. "Real estate development, commercial properties mostly, some residential." "Successful?" "I do well enough. Well enough to afford that watch?" Robert nodded to Adrian's wrist. That's a $50,000 timepiece, if I'm not mistaken. Adrian didn't flinch. I've been fortunate in my investments. And Lena? What does she think about your fortune? She thinks I work too much and care too much about things that don't matter. Adrian's voice softened, and this part wasn't entirely a lie. She keeps me grounded, reminds me there's more to life than deals and money. Robert was quiet for a moment, and Adrian couldn't tell if he'd passed the test or failed spectacularly. My daughter is the kindest person I know, Robert said finally. She sees the best in people, even when they don't deserve it. She gives second chances, third chances. She forgives too easily and trusts too quickly. I know. Do you? Because if you hurt her, if you're using her or lying to her, or playing some game I can't see yet, I will find out, and I will make your life very difficult. Adrian met his gaze steadily. I have no intention of hurting Lena. It was the truth, wrapped in layers of lies. He didn't want to hurt her, but he would, inevitably, when this ended. They both knew it. Robert nodded slowly. Good. Then we understand each other. He extended his hand. Welcome to the family, Michael. The handshake felt like a betrayal. Back inside, Lena was cornered by her grandmother. 85 years old, diminished by illness, but still sharp as ever. Eyes that missed nothing. Lena, sweetheart, come sit with me. They settled on a couch away from the main crowd, and Eleanor Hayes took her granddaughter's hand with fingers that trembled slightly. I'm so glad you could come, Grandma. Wouldn't miss my own party. Eleanor's smile was warm but tired. Now, tell me about this young man you've brought. His name is Michael. I know his name. I want to know who he is, really is. Lena's throat tightened. He's good to me, Grandma. He makes me laugh. He challenges me. He's different from anyone I've ever known. Different how? He doesn't need me to be perfect. He just needs me to be honest. The irony of the statement wasn't lost on Lena, considering the entire relationship was built on lies. Eleanor studied her granddaughter's face. You love him. It wasn't a question, and Lena found herself unable to answer because the truth was too complicated and the lie was too simple. I care about him, she said finally. That's not what I asked. Before Lena could respond, Adrian and her father returned and Eleanor's attention shifted. You must be Michael. Come here. Let me look at you. Adrian approached with the same controlled grace he brought to everything, but Lena saw something flicker in his expression when Eleanor took his hand. The old woman's grip was weak, but her gaze was unwavering. You're taking care of my granddaughter? I'm trying to, ma'am. Trying isn't the same as succeeding. Eleanor's tone was gentle but firm. Lena deserves someone who will fight for her, protect her, love her the way she loves, with her whole heart. Can you do that? Adrian glanced at Lena, and something passed between them that felt too real for the performance they were giving. Yes, he said quietly, I can do that. Eleanor smiled. Good. Then you're welcome here. She patted the couch beside her. Sit. Tell me how you proposed. They sat, Adrian's hand finding Lena's automatically, and told the story they'd rehearsed. But somewhere in the telling, with Eleanor's tired eyes watching them and the weight of the lie pressing down, Lena felt something shift. This wasn't just about convincing her family anymore. It was about giving her grandmother something beautiful to hold on to. A story of love and commitment. Something pure in a world that often wasn't, even if it was fake. Especially because it was fake. The party continued around them. Cake was cut. Speeches were made, photos were taken. Lena and Adrian smiled for cameras, held each other, played their parts. And through it all, Lena caught moments where Adrian seemed almost comfortable, laughing at Connor's terrible jokes, listening patiently to her mother's stories, helping her grandmother with her cake when her hand shook too much. He was good at this. Too good. It was late afternoon when things went wrong. Lena was refilling her water glass at the bar when a man approached. Mid-40s, expensive suit, face she didn't recognize. Lena Hayes, right? His smile was friendly, but something about him set off alarm bells. I'm James Peterson, friend of the family. Nice to meet you. Lena started to move away, but he stepped into her path. I have to say, I was surprised to hear you were engaged. Last I heard you were single, working at that restaurant downtown. His tone was conversational, but his eyes were calculating. Fast courtship with Mr. Carson. Lena's stomach dropped. I'm sorry, do we know each other? We have mutual friends. I've heard about you. He leaned closer. Actually, I've heard about Michael Carson too. Funny thing, I work in finance, know most of the major players in the city. Never heard of him. He keeps a low profile. Does he? Because I'm very good at finding people, and Michael Carson doesn't seem to exist, at least not the way you've described him. James's smile turned sharp. Which makes me wonder who that man really is, talking to your father right now. Lena's mouth went dry. I don't know what you're talking about. No? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I should just go introduce myself, ask him directly about his work. I'm sure he'd love to discuss real estate development with someone in the industry. It was a threat, thinly veiled, and Lena recognized the play. He wanted something, and he was using her lie as leverage. What do you want? She asked quietly. Smart girl. I want to know who he really is. I want to know why you're lying to your family, and I want to know if this information would be valuable to certain parties who might pay well for it. Before Lena could respond, Adrian appeared at her side. His hand settled on her lower back, possessive and protective. Is there a problem? He asked, voice pleasant but eyes cold. James's smile widened. Michael Carson, I presume? James Peterson. I was just introducing myself to your lovely fiancée. How nice! Adrian's tone suggested it was anything but. Lena, your grandmother was looking for you. Of course. Lena started to leave, but James caught her arm. Actually, I was hoping we could all chat. I have some questions about... He didn't finish. Adrian's hand closed around James's wrist, removing it from Lena's arm with deliberate force. Don't touch her, Adrian said quietly. In fact, don't talk to her, don't look at her, don't breathe in her direction. Are we clear? James paled but held his ground. I just want to talk. No, you want to blackmail. I recognize the setup. Adrian stepped closer, and despite being the same height, he seemed to tower over James. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave this party. You're going to forget you ever met Lena or me, and you're going to remember that threatening people has consequences. Are you threatening me? I'm clarifying reality. Adrian's smile was cold. Now leave, while you still can. James looked between them, clearly weighing his options. Then he backed away, disappearing into the crowd. Lena's hands were shaking. He knows this is fake. He suspects there's a difference. Adrian guided her toward a quieter corner. Did he say anything else? That he was going to expose us, sell the information to someone. Lena's breath was coming too fast. This is falling apart. Everything's falling apart. Hey! Adrian cupped her face, forcing her to look at him. Breathe. It's not falling apart. He's fishing, trying to scare you into confirming his suspicions. Don't give him that. But he'll investigate. He'll find out Michael Carson doesn't exist the way I described. He'll tell my family. No, he won't. Adrian's voice was calm, certain. I'll handle it. How? You don't need to know how. You just need to trust me. Lena wanted to argue, but the look in his eyes stopped her. This was the man who'd ordered someone killed in an alley. This was the man who lived in a world of violence and control, and right now that terrified and comforted her in equal measure. I trust you, she heard herself say. Something flickered in Adrian's expression. You shouldn't. I know, but I do. He was quiet for a moment, thumb brushing her cheekbone in a gesture that felt too intimate for their audience. Then he dropped his hands and stepped back. Go back to your family, smile, act normal. I'll take care of this. Adrian? I'll take care of it, he repeated firmly. That's what I do. He disappeared into the crowd, and Lena stood there trying to process what had just happened. Someone had seen through their lie. Someone was threatening to expose them, and Adrian had promised to handle it in ways she probably didn't want to imagine. She returned to her grandmother's side, plastered on a smile and tried to act like her world wasn't imploding. Eleanor took her hand. Everything all right, dear? You look pale. Just tired. It's been a long day. Where's Michael? He had to make a call. Work thing. Eleanor's expression turned knowing. He's protective of you. I saw the way he looked at that man who was bothering you. You saw that? I may be old and sick, but I'm not blind. Eleanor squeezed her hand. That's a man who would burn the world down for you, Lena. Hold on to that. Lena's throat tightened. If only her grandmother knew the truth, that Adrian would burn the world down, yes, but not for love. For control. For keeping his secrets safe. Except she wasn't sure that was entirely true anymore. Adrian returned 20 minutes later, expression neutral, no sign of whatever he'd done to handle James Peterson. He rejoined the family easily, charming Lena's aunts, discussing politics with her uncle, being everything Michael Carson was supposed to be. But Lena saw the tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes scanned the room constantly, assessing threats. When they finally left, hours later, with hugs and promises to visit soon and her mother already planning the wedding, Lena felt like she'd run a marathon. In the car, silence stretched between them until they were on the highway, city lights blurring past. What did you do? Lena asked quietly. I had a conversation. What kind of conversation? The kind that convinced James Peterson that pursuing this would be bad for his health and his career. Adrian's hands were steady on the wheel. He won't be a problem. Did you threaten him? I clarified the situation. That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're getting. Adrian glanced at her. You don't want to know the details, Lena. Trust me on that. She probably didn't, but she asked anyway. Did you hurt him? No, but I made it clear that I could. Sometimes that's more effective than actual violence. Lena's stomach twisted. This was who Adrian was, someone who solved problems with threats and intimidation, who lived in a world where violence was always an option. She'd known it intellectually, but seeing it in action, watching him calmly discuss terrorizing someone at her grandmother's birthday party, made it real in ways she couldn't ignore. You're afraid of me now, Adrian said. It wasn't a question. I don't know what I am. You should be afraid. You should have been afraid from the beginning. His voice was flat. I'm not a good man, Lena. I've never pretended to be. The things I've done, the world I live in, your grandmother was wrong. I'm not someone you hold on to. I'm someone you run from. Then why did you agree to this? Why play the devoted fiancé if you're so convinced you're irredeemable? Because I needed you. And because for 3 weeks, I get to pretend I'm someone different. Someone who could have a normal life, a normal relationship, a normal family. He laughed, bitter. Pathetic, isn't it? Lena looked at him, really looked at him, at the hard lines of his face, the tension in his shoulders, the loneliness wrapped in expensive clothes and cold control. It's not pathetic, she said quietly. It's human. Being human gets you killed in my world. Then maybe you're in the wrong world. Adrian pulled into the driveway but didn't get out. They sat in the dark garage, engine ticking as it cooled, neither moving. Today was hard, Adrian said finally. Your family, your grandmother, watching them love you, worry about you, want the best for you, that kind of unconditional care, I don't understand it. Did your family not? My family was complicated. My father loved too much, trusted too easily, got destroyed for it. My mother left when I was 12, couldn't handle the life anymore. I learned early that love is a weapon people use against you. He turned to face her. But watching you today, watching how they look at you, I understood why you needed this lie, why you couldn't bear to disappoint them. They're all I have. No, they're not. His hand found hers in the dark. You have more than you think, more than they see. You're stronger than they give you credit for. I'm not strong. I'm drowning in lies. You survived me. That takes strength. His thumb brushed across her knuckles. Your grandmother asked if I could love you the way you love, with your whole heart. I told her yes. You lied. Did I? Adrian's voice was soft, dangerous, because I'm starting to think that was the only honest thing I said all day. Lena's breath caught. Adrian, don't say anything, because if you do, If we acknowledge this, it becomes real, and real is complicated. It's already complicated. Then let's not make it worse. He released her hand, opened his door. We have 8 days left. Let's just get through them. He got out, leaving Lena sitting in the dark, heart pounding, trying to understand what had just happened. Adrian Voss had just admitted he might love her, and it terrified her more than anything he'd done before. Inside, they went to their separate rooms without speaking. Lena changed, washed off makeup, went through the motions mechanically. Her mind was spinning, replaying conversations, analyzing moments, trying to separate performance from truth. She was sitting on her bed, still dressed, when someone knocked softly. Adrian stood in her doorway, still in his clothes from the party, looking as lost as she felt. "I can't sleep," he said. "Me neither." "Can I come in?" Lena nodded, and he entered, closing the door behind him. For a moment they just looked at each other, two people pretending to be married who were starting to wish the pretending was real. "What are we doing?" Lena asked quietly. "I don't know." Adrian sat beside her on the bed, careful to leave space between them. This was supposed to be simple, a transaction. 3 weeks, then done. It's not simple anymore. No. He turned to face her. "Your family is lovely. Your grandmother is dying. James Peterson tried to blackmail you, and I threatened him because the thought of anyone hurting you made me want to commit violence." He laughed, hollow. "Nothing about this is simple. Do you regret it, offering me this deal? I regret that I'm going to hurt you when this ends. I regret that you're starting to look at me like I'm someone worth caring about. I regret that every time I touch you now, it feels less like acting and more like need." He paused. "But I don't regret knowing you." Lena's eyes burned. "We can't do this. We can't let this become real." "I know." 8 more days, then we go our separate ways. That's the deal. "I know." "So why does it feel like we're lying to ourselves more than we're lying to everyone else?" Adrian reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear in that gesture that had become habit. "Because we are." They sat there in the quiet, not touching, but not quite separate, two people caught in a lie that was becoming truth. "Tell me something real," Lena said suddenly. "Not part of the story we're selling, something true." Adrian was quiet for a long moment, then, "My mother didn't just leave because she couldn't handle the life. She left because my father became someone she didn't recognize, someone violent and paranoid and dangerous. And I swore I'd never become him. But every day, I see more of him in the mirror." He met her eyes, and that terrifies me more than anything in my world ever has. "You're not your father." "How do you know? You don't know what I've done, the things I'm capable of." "I know you gave me your mother's bracelet. I know you were gentle with my grandmother even though you had no reason to be. I know you protected me today, not because you had to, but because you wanted to." Lena's voice was steady. "You think you're a monster, but monsters don't question themselves. Maybe I'm just better at hiding it. Or maybe you're more human than you want to admit." Adrian stood abruptly, pacing to the window. "You need to stop doing that." "Doing what?" "Seeing things in me that aren't there, building me into something I'm not. I'm going to disappoint you, Lena. It's inevitable. And I'd rather you hate me for what I am than love me for what I'm not." Too late for that. He turned, and the look on his face was raw, vulnerable in ways she'd never seen. "Don't say that." "Why not? It's true. I'm already in too deep. I already care more than I should." Lena stood, crossing to him. "You think you're the only one pretending this is fake?" "I've been lying to myself for days, telling myself it's just the performance, just the proximity, just the situation. But it's not." "Lena, I don't want the money anymore. I don't want the clean slate. I just want—" She stopped, afraid to finish the sentence. "What? What do you want?" "You. The real you. Not Michael, not the businessman, not the act. Just Adrian." Her voice broke. "And I know that's impossible. I know we have 8 days left, and then this ends. I know you live in a world I don't belong in, and I live in a life you can't be part of. But I'm tired of pretending I don't feel this." Adrian closed the distance between them in 2 steps, hands framing her face with surprising gentleness. "If I kiss you right now," he said quietly, "there's no going back. This stops being fake. This becomes real. And real is messy and complicated and probably going to end badly for both of us. I know. Are you sure? Instead of answering, Lena kissed him. It was nothing like the brief, performative touches they'd shared for audiences. This was desperate and real, and everything they'd been holding back for nearly 2 weeks. His hands tangled in her hair, hers gripped his shirt, and for a moment the lies fell away, and there was just this: two people who'd found each other in the worst possible way at the worst possible time. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. "We're idiots," he said. "Complete idiots. This is going to be a disaster." "Probably. I'm still dangerous, still living in a world you shouldn't be part of, still going to hurt you. I know." Lena's hands were still fisted in his shirt. "Do it anyway." And Adrian, who'd spent his entire adult life in control, who never made decisions without calculating every angle, who'd built an empire on cold logic and ruthless efficiency, threw caution away and kissed her again. Somewhere in the back of his mind, he knew this was a mistake. Knew that letting Lena in, letting this become real, was the most dangerous thing he'd ever done. But for the first time in longer than he could remember, Adrian Voss didn't care about the danger. He just wanted her, and that more than anything should have terrified him. Instead, it felt like finally coming home. Adrian left her room before dawn, before the lines between pretending and reality could blur any further. But the damage was done. They'd crossed a threshold neither had intended to cross, and there was no going back. Lena lay in bed watching the sunrise paint her ceiling in shades of gold, trying to reconcile the transaction they'd agreed to with what had happened between them. In 8 days, this was supposed to end. The marriage annulled, the money transferred, both of them walking away clean. Except nothing about this felt clean anymore. She found him in the gym, hitting the punching bag with controlled violence. Marcus was nowhere to be seen. Adrian's movements were precise, methodical, like he was trying to beat something out of his system. "We need to talk," Lena said from the doorway. He stopped, breathing hard, not turning around. "About last night. About what happens now." "Nothing happens now. We have 7 days left on our agreement. We finish what we started." He grabbed a towel, finally facing her. His expression was shuttered, back to the cold control she'd first encountered. "Last night was a mistake." The words stung more than they should have. A mistake. What else would you call it? We got caught up in the moment. The performance became too real. It happens. His voice was flat, emotionless. But it doesn't change the fundamental reality. This ends in 7 days. You get your money. I get my business deal. We move on. You don't believe that. I have to believe it, because the alternative is admitting I've developed feelings for someone I'm contractually obligated to leave. And that's not acceptable. Lena stepped closer, refusing to let him retreat behind his walls. What if I don't want the money anymore? What if I want to stay? Then you're delusional. Adrian's jaw tightened. This isn't a fairy tale, Lena. I'm not a prince. I'm a criminal who threatened a man at your grandmother's birthday party. I live in a world where people die for crossing me. Where trust gets you killed and love is a liability. You don't belong here. Maybe I do. Maybe you don't get to decide that for me. I'm deciding it anyway. He moved past her toward the door. The Castellano deal closes in 5 days. After that, we'll handle the annulment. Until then, we maintain appearances. That's all. He left, and Lena stood alone in the gym, anger and hurt warring in her chest. He was shutting her out, pushing her away, probably thinking he was protecting her. But all he was doing was proving he was exactly as damaged as she'd suspected. The next 3 days were torture. They maintained the appearance of a devoted couple for the Castellanos, for Adrian's business associates, for anyone watching. But in private, Adrian was distant, cold, back to treating her like an employee rather than someone he'd kissed like his life depended on it. Lena threw herself into the routine, training with Marcus, who said nothing about the tension but pushed her harder, meals with Helen, who offered quiet sympathy without prying, long hours alone in that massive house, feeling more isolated than she'd ever felt in her tiny apartment. Her mother called daily, gushing about how wonderful Michael had been, how happy Grandma Eleanor was, how excited everyone was for the wedding. Each call was another knife in Lena's chest, another reminder that the lies had multiplied beyond control. On day 4, everything changed. Lena was in the library when Helen appeared, face pale, expression strained. "Mrs. Voss, there's a situation. Mr. Voss needs you in his office immediately." The urgency in Helen's voice sent alarm bells ringing. Lena followed her down the hall, found Adrian on his phone, expression darker than she'd ever seen it. "I don't care what it takes," he was saying. "Find him, now!" He hung up, looked at Lena. "We have a problem." "What kind of problem?" "James Peterson, the man from your grandmother's party. He's missing." Lena's stomach dropped. Missing? As of this morning, his wife filed a report, and apparently before he disappeared, he told several people about his suspicions regarding us. Adrian's voice was tight. "The police are asking questions, about me specifically." "Oh my God! Did you—" "No, I didn't touch him." Adrian's eyes were hard. "But someone did, and they're trying to make it look like I'm responsible." "Who would do that?" "Someone who wants to destroy my deal with the Castellanos. Someone who wants to see me implicated in a disappearance right before the biggest negotiation of my career." He pulled up something on his computer, turned the screen toward her. "Thomas, the man from the gala, he's connected to a rival group. They've been trying to block this acquisition for months." Lena's mind raced. "So he took James Peterson, who already suspected us, and made him disappear to frame you." "Exactly. And if the police come sniffing around, if the Castellanos get wind of this, the entire deal falls apart. More than that, I could be looking at real legal trouble." "What do we do?" "We?" Adrian's expression was sharp. "There's no we in this, Lena. This is my mess. My world. You need to distance yourself. Go back to your apartment, your life. Act like this was a brief fling that ended. Protect yourself." "I'm not abandoning you. You're not abandoning me. You're being smart." He stood, came around the desk. "This is what I tried to tell you. My world is dangerous. People disappear. People get framed. People die. And I won't let you get caught in the crossfire. Too late. I'm already in it." Lena grabbed his arms, forcing him to look at her. "We're married, Adrian, legally. That makes this my problem, too. So stop trying to protect me by pushing me away and let me help." For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Gratitude, maybe, or fear. Then it was gone, replaced by calculation. "If you stay, if you help, there's no guarantee this ends well," he said quietly. "Nothing in life comes with guarantees. You taught me that." Adrian was quiet, clearly weighing options, assessing risks. Then he nodded. "All right, here's what we're going to do." They spent the next 2 hours strategizing. Adrian made calls, pulled in favors, activated networks Lena didn't want to know about. The picture became clearer. Thomas had orchestrated James's disappearance to frame Adrian, timing it perfectly to coincide with the Castellano deal closing. "He's probably keeping James alive somewhere," Adrian said, studying surveillance footage his people had pulled. "If James turns up dead with evidence pointing to me, it's stronger than just a disappearance. But if I can find him first, prove I wasn't involved, the frame job falls apart. And if you can't find him, then I lose everything, the deal, my reputation, possibly my freedom." He looked at her. "Which is why you should still leave, while you can." "I'm not leaving." Lena's voice was firm. "What do you need me to do?" What Adrian needed was something Lena hadn't expected. He needed her to go back to the Castellanos. "Maria trusts you," he explained. "If the rumors reach them before we resolve this, they'll call off the deal. But if you go there, act normal, keep them confident. It buys us time." "You want me to lie to them?" "I want you to do what you've been doing for 2 weeks. Perform, convince them everything is fine. While you're out hunting for a missing man. While I'm fixing this mess." Adrian's expression was tense. "Can you do it?" Lena thought about Maria's warmth, Antonio's trust, the way they'd welcomed her into their family without question. The thought of lying to them again made her sick. But the alternative was letting Adrian face this alone. "I can do it," she said. The Castellanos welcomed her like always, warm hugs and genuine smiles. Maria immediately pulled her into the kitchen, chattering about wedding plans. asking about venues and flowers and all the things Lena should have been thinking about if any of this were real. Adrian's working too much again, isn't he? Maria said knowingly. That man doesn't know how to rest. He's closing a big deal, Lena said, the lie smooth now. He wants everything perfect. Of course he does. Control is important to him. Maria squeezed her hand, but he has you now, someone to remind him what matters. The guilt was suffocating. They had lunch and Lena performed perfectly, laughed at the right moments, shared invented stories about her life with Adrian, let Maria believe the fairy tale. All while her phone sat silent in her purse. No updates from Adrian, no idea if he was finding anything or falling deeper into trouble. It was mid-afternoon when Antonio joined them, his expression troubled. Lena, can I ask you something? Her heart seized. Of course. Adrian, his business. You know what he really does, don't you? The question hung in the air like a blade. Lena's throat went dry. I know he's in real estate development, she said carefully. And the rest? Antonio's eyes were kind but sharp. The parts he doesn't advertise? Lena met his gaze, made a choice. I know he's complicated. I know his world isn't simple. And I know he's trying to build something better. Antonio studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. Good. Because rumors are circulating about a missing man, about Adrian being involved. And I need to know if my daughter here, he gestured to Maria, and I are making a mistake trusting him. You're not making a mistake. Lena's voice was steady. Adrian didn't do what they're accusing him of. He's being framed by people who want to see him fail, and he's working right now to prove it. How do you know? Because I know him. Not the businessman, not the reputation. Him. She held Antonio's gaze. He's not perfect, but he's honest with me about who he is, and that's more than most people can say. Antonio and Maria exchanged a look, some silent communication passing between them. Then Antonio smiled slightly. You love him, really love him. And Lena, who'd been lying for weeks, found herself telling the truth. Yes, I really do. Her phone buzzed. A text from Adrian. Found him. Need you home now. Lena made her excuses, promised to visit soon, son, and rushed back to the house. She found Adrian in his office with a man she didn't recognize. Mid-40s, disheveled, terrified. James Peterson. Lena, Adrian said, voice tight. James has something to tell you. James looked at her, shame written across his face. I'm sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. Thomas offered me money to dig up dirt on you and Adrian, said it would just be leverage, nothing serious. Then he took me, locked me in some warehouse, said he was going to kill me and make it look like Adrian did it. How did you escape? Lena asked. I didn't. Adrian's people found me, broke in, got me out. James's hands shook. He saved my life even though I tried to blackmail him. Adrian's expression was unreadable. I'm not in the business of letting innocent people die for other people's games, even people who threaten me. What happens now? Lena asked. Now James goes to the police, tells them everything. Thomas gets arrested for kidnapping. The frame job collapses, and the Castellano deal goes through. Adrian's gaze was steady. And you get your life back. The words landed like stones. Right. The deal. The end of their arrangement. James left with 2 of Adrian's security team to give his statement. Helen appeared to show them out, and suddenly Lena and Adrian were alone in the office that had seen so many of their battles. You did it, Lena said. You saved the deal. We did it. You kept the Castellanos confident, bought the time I needed. Antonio asked me if I knew what you really did, what you really are. Adrian's jaw tightened. What did you tell him? The truth, that you're complicated, that you're trying to build something better, that I trust you. She paused. And that I love you. The confession hung between them. Adrian closed his eyes briefly, and when he opened them, they were raw with something that looked like pain. You can't love me, Lena. Too bad. I already do. I'm going to hurt you. It's inevitable. You're hurting me right now by pushing me away. She crossed to him, refusing to let him retreat. The deal closes tomorrow. Our agreement ends. But I don't want it to end. I want us, to be real. It can't be real. You saw what happened with James. My enemies will use you against me. They'll threaten you, hurt you, maybe worse. I can't protect you from that. Then teach me to protect myself. You've been training me for 2 weeks. Keep training me. Let me be part of this world instead of shielding me from it. You don't understand what you're asking. I understand perfectly. I'm asking you to stop being afraid, to stop hiding behind control and danger and all your excuses. I'm asking you to let me in. Really in. Not as part of a transaction, but as someone who wants to stay. Adrian's control was cracking. She could see it. The walls he'd built so carefully were crumbling under the weight of everything they'd become to each other. If I let you stay, he said quietly, if we make this real, I need you to understand something. My world is violent, dangerous, unpredictable. People will come after us, after you. And I will do whatever it takes to protect you. Whatever it takes. Can you live with that? Lena thought about the man in the alley, the gunshot, the cold way Adrian had threatened James at her grandmother's party. Thought about Marcus teaching her to fight, Helen's knowing looks, the bracelet on her wrist that belonged to a mother Adrian never mentioned. She thought about all of it, and still, her answer was simple. Yes, I can live with that, as long as you stop trying to face everything alone. Adrian pulled her close, forehead resting against hers, and Lena felt the tremor run through him. Relief, or fear, or both. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. How to be with someone. How to trust that you won't leave or betray me or use my feelings against me. Neither do I. I've been lying to everyone for so long I forgot how to be honest. Lena's hands fisted in his shirt. But we'll figure it out, together, messily and imperfectly, but together. This is insane. Probably. But we're good at insane, remember? And Adrian, who'd spent his entire life calculating risks and avoiding vulnerabilities, made the most dangerous decision of his life. He chose her. The kiss was different from the others, not desperate or performative, but certain, a promise instead of a question. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Adrian's expression had shifted from guarded to something that looked almost like hope. The Castellano deal closes tomorrow, he said. After that, we don't need to be married anymore. We can annul it, start fresh, do this the right way. Or, Lena said slowly, we could stay married, make the contract real. You want to stay married to me? I want to be with you. Whether that's as your wife or your girlfriend or your partner in crime, I don't care. I just want you, the real you. Adrian was quiet, processing. Then, my world will demand things from you. You'll need to be stronger, smarter, more careful than you've ever been. You'll need to learn when to fight and when to walk away. You'll need to understand that sometimes I'll make decisions you won't like, do things you won't approve of, all to keep us safe. I know. And your family. They'll expect Michael Carson, the successful businessman. They'll want wedding photos and grandchildren and normalcy. Can you give them that while knowing what I really am? Lena thought about her grandmother, her mother's excitement, the lies she'd told to get here. We'll find a balance. We've been performing for weeks. We can keep performing when we need to, but privately, between us, we'll be honest. Always. Always, Adrian repeated, like he was testing the word. I've never promised anyone always before. Good. Then I'll be your first. He pulled her close again, and they stood there in his office, two people who'd found each other through lies and desperation and the worst possible circumstances, holding on to something real for the first time in their lives. The next day, the Castellano deal closed. Adrian signed papers, shook hands, officially acquired the business interests that would legitimize his empire and shift his world toward something legal. Antonio embraced him like a son. Maria kissed both their cheeks, and through it all, Lena stood beside him, not as a prop or a performance, but as his actual wife. You did good, boy, Antonio said quietly to Adrian. Building something that lasts, that matters. Your father would be proud. Adrian's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Thank you. After the Castellanos left, after the attorneys and the celebration and the photographs, Adrian and Lena returned to the house that had felt like a prison and was starting to feel like home. "What now?" Lena asked. "Now we figure out what being married actually means when it's not a transaction." Adrian pulled her close. "We tell your family the truth about my name. We navigate the complicated reality of merging your world with mine. We probably make a lot of mistakes." "Sounds terrible." "Probably will be." He smiled, actually smiled, warm and genuine, "but at least we'll be terrible together." They stood in the foyer where Lena had first arrived 3 weeks ago, terrified and desperate, and she thought about how far they'd come, how many lies it had taken to find the truth, how the most dangerous man she'd ever met had become the safest place she'd ever known. "I need to call my mother," Lena said. "Tell her that Michael's real name is Adrian, that he's not in finance, not exactly, that our story is more complicated than I let on." "Will she understand?" "Eventually. Maybe." Lena twisted the ring on her finger, no longer a prop, but a promise. "They love me. That means accepting my choices, even the messy ones." "Speaking of messy," Adrian's expression turned serious. "There's something else we need to discuss. The money. The $200,000 I promised you, it's still yours. The contract is fulfilled. You can take it and walk away if you want." "I don't want it." "Lena, I don't want your money, Adrian. I never did, not really. I wanted a way out of drowning, a way to stop lying to my family. And you gave me that, but what I got was so much more." She took his hands. "I got you, and that's worth more than any amount of money." "You're too good for me." "Probably, but you're stuck with me anyway." Adrian kissed her, and Lena thought about fairy tales and how they always skipped the complicated parts. The messy reality of two broken people trying to build something whole. The negotiations and compromises and hard conversations about merging lives that didn't naturally fit. But maybe that was the real story worth telling. Not the perfect romance, but the imperfect one. The one where love wasn't a solution, but a choice you made every day despite the complications. 3 months later, Lena stood in the same Riverside country club where her grandmother's party had been, wearing a different dress, surrounded by the same family, preparing to tell them the truth. Adrian was beside her, hand on her lower back, solid and steady. They decided together, no more lies. Her family deserved to know who she'd really married, what his world really entailed, what their future actually looked like. "You ready?" Adrian murmured. "No, but let's do it anyway." Her mother appeared, smiling. "Lena, what's this mysterious announcement you mentioned? Is it about the wedding? Have you set a date?" Lena took a breath. "Actually, Mom, there's something I need to tell you. About Michael, about us." The truth came out in pieces. That his real name was Adrian Voss. That their romance had started as a business arrangement. That the engagement had begun as a lie to impress the family, but had become real along the way. That his business interests were complicated, sometimes dangerous, and she was choosing to be part of that world anyway. Her mother's face went through a dozen emotions. Her father looked ready to explode. Maya immediately went into lawyer mode, asking questions, demanding details. But her grandmother, sitting in her wheelchair, oxygen tube in her nose, just smiled. "I knew," Eleanor said quietly. Everyone turned to stare at her. "You knew?" Lena asked. "That Michael wasn't who you said he was? That something was complicated about your relationship?" Eleanor's eyes were still sharp despite the illness ravaging her body. "Of course I knew. I've been reading people for 85 years, sweetheart. You think I couldn't see through a fake engagement? Then why didn't you say anything?" "Because I could also see that whatever started as a lie was becoming real. I could see the way he looked at you, the way you looked at him. I could see two people finding each other despite themselves." Eleanor reached out, and Adrian knelt beside her wheelchair so she could take his hand. "And I could see that this man, whatever his past, whatever his world, would burn it all down before he let anything hurt you. That's worth more than any pretty story." Adrian's throat worked. "Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You hurt my granddaughter. I'll haunt you. Don't think death will stop me." "I believe you." Eleanor turned to Lena. "You love him?" "Yes." "And he loves you?" "Yes," Adrian said before Lena could answer. Then that's all that matters. Eleanor leaned back, tired but satisfied. Everything else is just details. The family was less immediately accepting. Her mother needed time to process. Her father demanded a private conversation with Adrian that lasted an hour and involved what sounded like threats. Maya made them both promise to get a better prenup, one that actually protected Lena. But slowly, grudgingly, they came around. Because at the end of the day, they could see what Eleanor saw, that whatever mess Lena and Adrian had started with, they'd found something real in the middle of it. 6 months after that, Eleanor passed away peacefully in her sleep. The funeral was huge, celebrating a life well lived and a woman who'd touched countless people. Lena gave the eulogy, Adrian held her hand through it, and afterward her mother pulled them both aside. "She loved you, you know," Claire said to Adrian. "Told me right before she died that you were exactly what Lena needed. Someone strong enough to match her, honest enough to earn her trust." "I try," Adrian said quietly. "Try harder." But Claire's smile was warm. "And thank you for making her last months happy, for giving her a love story to believe in." A year after their arrangement began, Lena and Adrian stood in Adrian's office, their office now, since Lena had started working with him on the legitimate side of his business interests. "The Hayes Foundation is officially established," Adrian said, reviewing paperwork. "In your grandmother's name, focused on civil rights advocacy, supporting causes she cared about. Initial funding of $5 million. You didn't have to do that," Lena said. "Yes, I did. Your grandmother saw something in me I didn't see in myself. This is how I honor that." He set down the papers. "Also, Marcus says you're ready for advanced training. Says you could probably take down most of my security team now." "Probably isn't definitely. Definitely comes with time. You're getting there." Adrian pulled her close. "The Castellano acquisition is generating returns ahead of projections. Antonio wants to expand our partnership. And I got a call from your mother. She's planning a family dinner next week and demanding we attend." "Your life has become so domestic," Lena teased. "Our life. And I hate how much I don't hate it." He kissed her forehead. "Who knew that the woman I hired to play my wife would actually become the best decision I ever made? You didn't hire me to be your wife. You hired me to pretend. Best mistake I ever made, then." Lena looked around the office, at the life they'd built from lies and desperation. She thought about the woman she'd been, drowning in debt, lying to her family, hiring wedding planners for fiancés who didn't exist. She thought about the man Adrian had been, cold, controlled, convinced that love was weakness and trust was fatal. And she thought about what they'd become together. Not perfect, never perfect, but real. Honest in the ways that mattered. Building something that lasted not because it was easy, but because they chose it every single day. "You know what's funny?" Lena said. "What?" "I came to you thinking I needed a fake husband to solve my problems, and you came to me thinking you needed a fake wife to close a deal. And we were both right, just not the way we expected. We did solve our problems. We did close the deal, just not the business one." Adrian smiled, that genuine smile she'd learned to coax out of him. "So what deal did we close?" "The one where two people too stubborn to admit they were lonely found each other and decided to be less lonely together." "That's not very romantic." "No, but it's true. And true is better than romantic." Adrian kissed her, and somewhere in the back of her mind, Lena thought about the wedding planner she'd hired all those months ago. About Caroline with her binder of vendors and her professional smile, planning a party for a man who didn't exist. She should probably tell Caroline the truth someday. Explain that Michael Carson had become Adrian Voss, that the fake engagement had become a real marriage, that the careful lie had transformed into the most honest thing in her life. But maybe Caroline wouldn't be surprised. Maybe she'd seen enough weddings and engagements and love stories to know that the real ones never started neatly. They started in alleys and desperate phone calls and deals struck out of necessity. They started with people pretending to be something they weren't until they accidentally became something better. They started messy and stayed messy, and that was okay, because messy meant real, and real meant there was something worth fighting for. "What are you thinking about?" Adrian asked. Fairy tales, Lena said. And how they always end at the wedding, like that's the hard part over. And? And I'm glad our story didn't end there. I'm glad we got to do the hard part. The actual marriage, the merging of worlds, the daily choice to stay. You think we're doing it right? I think we're doing it our way, and that's the only right that matters. Adrian pulled her closer, and they stood in the office that had witnessed so many of their battles, holding on to each other and the life they'd built from lies. Because that was the real lesson Lena had learned, that sometimes you had to lie your way into the truth. Sometimes you had to fake it until it became real. Sometimes the most dangerous man in the city turned out to be the safest place you'd ever known. And sometimes, just sometimes, the desperate choices you made when you were drowning turned out to be the ones that saved you. Not because they were easy, but because you chose them every single day, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. That was what love actually looked like. Not the performance, not the pretty story, but the daily choice to stay, to fight, to build something together despite all the reasons it shouldn't work. And Lena and Adrian, who'd started as strangers bound by contract, had somehow become partners bound by choice, which was messier, harder, and infinitely more real than anything they'd pretended to be. And that, Lena thought as Adrian kissed her again, was the only kind of love story worth telling, the kind that didn't end with the wedding, the kind that just kept beginning, over and over with every choice to stay.